Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Uncontested Investing. I'm Nate Zielinski from RCN Capital, and that's Suzanne Andreessen from REI Inc. We're happy to be joining you today. We're going to continue our conversation about the investor mindset. Again, I go back to that great conversation we had with Tanya Willis, COO from American Destiny Real Estate and End-to-End Solutions. If you haven't checked out that interview, I advise you to do so. We learned a lot. Today, one of the things we're going to talk about when we're thinking about the investor mindset is the optimism of the future and not really looking at the pessimistic nature of the past, so to speak, right? It's going to be reset on a property. So when you lose a tenant as a real estate investor, I imagine that can be a pretty scary time. But it's about hitting that reset button, giving the property a facelift, and really being attracting that property and being optimistic for the next tenant, right? That energy that you pour into that property is going to be infectious. Potential tenants are going to be able to see that, and that can, sometimes determine whether or not they're going to want to stay in that property or be the new renter that comes in.
Well, and a first impression truly does matter. Right now, 90+% of these people are seeing these in some sort of digital site
Yeah.
that they can evaluate your property. And this, really starts with the quality of the workmanship and how it's being presented. And, ask yourself the question, would you want to live there? And that's really how you want to base it, on how that first impression matters.
Yep. And it's funny, we talk about first impressions. I imagine Tanya Willis made a great first impression. I just keep harking back to her episode because she went from a temporal in the industry to CEO at two companies. So first impressions truly do matter. It starts with that property being clean, well prepared. Like all these things can reduce vacancy time. You're going to attract a quality tenant as well. And one of the things that I think is most important is it sets the tone not only for a positive landlord-tenant experience, but it sets the expectation of this is what I expect my property to look like when I get it back, right? The landlord or the investor can really dictate how a tenant treats the property based on the way they see it for the first time.
And that really comes back to some of that you should have in consideration when you do your initial renovation. Are you selecting products that are easily repairable? Can you go and take out, accidents happen. They really do.
Yeah.
Can you take out one of the boards and put another one in,
Mhm.
easily and make it look, as good as new? Are you recording your paint colors so you can patch versus
Yeah.
paint the whole wall?
Mhm.
So you want to, you want to make it look great, but be easy on yourself at the same time and choose products that are easily repairable.
Yeah. And I think sometimes investors that aren't familiar with the turnover phrase or the process itself can think that, oh, I can just hire a cleaning service. They can come in for the day and then the job's done. No, there's a lot of little nuances that go into a property that tenants will look at and really can turn them off or make the property that much more attractive. They see, okay, they even went through this amount of level of focus and detail on making sure this property looks good. That sets the tone, like we mentioned, and they feel like they're in the right spot with the right landlord. A lot of living in these rented out spaces has to do with the property itself, yes, but there's also that underrated chunk of am I with the right landlord? Does the landlord set the tone, make me feel comfortable, make me feel heard? Are they making themselves available?
Well, pride in the asset. Do
Yeah,
you have pride in the
exactly,
asset?
exactly.
And do you have, are there dust buddies in the corner? When I go into a hotel room,
Yeah.
the first thing I look at is the bathroom. Is there anybody else's hair in the tub
Hmm.
before I consider taking a shower in
Yeah.
there? So that's, you want to treat this like will you feel comfortable living there? Did they get, if there's a ceiling fan, did they dust the blades on the ceiling fans? You
Yeah.
don't have that whole ridge of dust because this is where someone's going to move into and make it their life. You want to make it as welcoming as it can be, and as clean as it can be, and maybe put some lavender in the closets or something that, just that it's like when they say when you're showing a house, put cookies in the oven and bake it. Well, you can't do that for all the showings, but you can do something that has a
Yeah.
slight flavor of lavender, and a scent of that. So you can,
Yeah.
just improve the
That
experience.
like homecoming or housewarming effect,
Sure,
so to
sure.
speak, right? Like you can create that fresh, welcoming environment. if you're willing to do a little bit more than clean as well, it can prevent complaints and maintenance issues down the road if you're just taking care of those small fixes rather than, okay, I can save that for a later date. Keep kicking those small repairs down the road. Those can lead to bigger issues, tenant complaints, them maybe even having a way out of the property earlier than the contract was agreed upon. All these types of things can really bite the investor in the rear end if they're not taking care of them when that turnover process actually allows them to do that work.
And and make sure that you're following all the code requirements as well. You talk about getting out of a of your lease early. My nephew is renting a property in upstate New York, and the GFIs are not properly installed, and there's some that don't have them on either side of his kitchen sink and one in the bathroom. And those are just huge things that you don't want to get nailed on. It's a $25 a day per fine per day, as long as they haven't come in it. So if you've got a savvy tenant who's really annoyed, they could really turn around
Yep.
and on top of that, even when you're going in there, change the wall plates. If there's a crack in it, make
Yeah.
sure that they're all the same color.
Hmm.
If you're going with off-white or cream, make sure that all of them match, because it's the presentation. It's not a lot of money, but it's all in how it's presented on the first glance.
Yep. And a great turnover can not only lead to securing a tenant for the present, but what it can do to you for reviews and referrals for your future tenants can be a massive win as well, right? If somebody steps into a house day one and everything's perfect and they feel welcoming, they're tempted to leave a great review about their work or their time staying at your property, and then referring a friend, right? Like if they're gonna leave and you have that great relationship with them where you've checked in throughout the year, the turnover process went great, and they're saying like, "Hey, I think I'm not going to renew the lease." That's where you can then start those conversations of like, or would you be willing to give me a referral to someone you know that can then move in? If they remember all those good memories and it started from day one, they're more likely to be like, "Oh, I would recommend this place to anyone I know. Anyone would want to live there." And that turnover can be the part of that really closes that deal.
Well, and hopefully the first question you ask them when they say they're not going to renew the lease, you say, can you tell me why?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it, oh, I have a promotion? Oh, congratulations. That's, really true. Or you didn't fix this in time.
Yep.
So you want to get on the front end before they put that post somewhere that we didn't fix the property in time,
Mhm.
that you want to, ask the questions, make sure that you have the opportunity to make good on it. And then again, certainly asking for a referral. And I would say that, even on your leases, they say if you provide a referral, there's $100 gift card in it for
Yeah.
you.
There you go.
So you tack it on the front end of the lease and make that as, any referral for renters,
Hmm.
be our partner.
Yeah. So the turnover process, we're going to break down into a couple different parts. But first off, is that cleaning checklist, right? It's not just the cleaning, but cleaning is an important part of that. It's certainly square one. So the deep clean essentials, the floors, the carpets, and the baseboards, all those things are very important. You don't want to have stained carpets. You don't want to have chipped tile flooring. The discoloration on the hardwood flooring sometimes that's more of an expensive fix, but if you can afford it or if it's just a minor spot, refinishing the hardwood flooring is all important. The kitchen appliances, right? So, clean those. Nobody wants to see crumbs in the microwave. Nobody wants to see leftover food in the fridge. They might be, the oil or the burnt whatever falls in the bottom of the oven. All those things can need that deep cleaning because when you have a tenant that comes in, you can better believe that they're opening the fridge, they're opening the microwave, they're checking do all the appliances work. So they're going to check if they're clean as well.
Well, and so the tenant, the traditional departure term is broom swept.
Hmm.
That's not broom clean.
Yeah.
So that's their departure out, but your incoming tenant, take, figure out what the tricks of the trade are. Put a wet sponge in the microwave for 33 seconds.
Yeah.
Then you can wipe all the dirt out and all loosen. There's things that you can do, but make sure, and realign the cabinets. If one of the doors is off kilter because
Yeah.
someone leaned on it, you make
Yep.
sure that all the doors are aligned and the drawers work properly. And it's a minor fix for you, but it's a huge, representative of how this is going to be for their living
Yep.
experience.
And then everybody's favorite place to clean. You got to go into the bathroom, scrub the tiles, sanitize all the fixtures, right? The lights where they're turning the faucet, replace the caulk if needed as well. That's a huge thing. If they're opening that shower curtain and there's a lot of cracks and potential for leaks, and that fresh white line of caulk actually goes a long way. to making that bathroom like give that facelift feel. And I think that's one of the biggest selling points for a new tenant. How do they feel when they go into a new bathroom for the first time? If they're grossed out, there's probably a zero.
Would they use it to live in
Exactly,
it?
exactly. Is it one of those public bathrooms that hasn't been cleaned in a couple hours, or does it feel like a nice private? Is there a nice scent in there? Is everything clean and refreshing? So the bathroom can actually be that key that closes the deal when you're talking about places you need to clean for your turnover process.
And hang a new shower liner. You put the 12 hooks up and a new shower. They
Yeah.
cost $5. They're going to want to put the liner on the outside that's prettier, matches whatever colors they want for their floor mats. But put a new shower liner that has all the folds in it that shows that it just came out of the package, fresh, brand new for them. It's $5, but it makes them feel clean.
Mhm.
So do some minor, appreciation investment into the asset, and your tenants will love you.
Yeah. And then there's areas where you just simply can't forget, right? Maybe if it's your own house, you can skip it every once in a while and get to it when you can. But when you're trying to attract a new tenant for your investment property, these are places that you can't forget about: the windows and the blinds. Nobody wants to see what their view looks like, and then they get a face full of dust in their mouth, and they're coughing and sneezing for the rest of the walkthrough. You have light fixtures and ceiling fans. People are going to check, does everything work? Does the light in this room work? Can I turn on the fan if I need to? If it gets hot, I don't want to turn on the AC quite just yet. Does the fan work? So they're going to be checking these things. And you have air filters and vents, two huge things that you're going to want to clean. If the filters and vents aren't clean, it just, again, it sets that tone for you don't want to run your finger across it and be like, okay, I
The
can make
white
I
glove.
can make a I can write my name in dust here on this vent or air filter.
Well, and there's things, that, with the filter, one, by putting in a new filter, you're saving the longevity of
Yeah,
your
that's
HVAC
exactly
unit.
it.
But also I would start with a brand new filter, and I would leave a brand new filter in there for the tenant, and, just say replace 6 months from whatever today is,
Yeah.
to guarantee good quality air. And I think, get them in the habit of doing it. There's companies like Filter Time that you can get subscriptions sent to the house, so that the filters are sent to the tenant and they get in the habit of replacing it. And again, it extends the longevity of your HVAC unit. Put new light bulbs in the ceiling fixtures or whatever, so that when someone flips it on,
Yeah.
two of the five bulbs aren't working.
Exactly. You don't want
It
that
just,
fluttering.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it shows that you've paid attention
Mhm.
to the little things. It's actually the little things that hurt the most, that you overlook, that they almost stand out like a beacon.
And it's not just the cleaning and the replacing of them. These now become a selling point for you when you're walking the tenant through. You can say, "Hey, I just replaced this vent or this filter on the AC. There's another one in the closet right here. I just redid these light bulbs and fixtures. These are brand new from Home Depot. I got a great deal on them. Like, tell me what you think. Do they look great? They should be, nice and clean and all that. I just got, I upgraded the vanity from Lowe's." So there's things that, yes, it looks good to the tenant's eye, but also being to explain the process of what you went through and how you had them in mind, like the tenant experience in mind. That starts the conversation on the right foot. Like, okay, wow, this person actually did all this, and they wanted me to feel welcome and that they take care of their property, they have pride in it. The tenant feels that, and that's a huge win for you as an investor.
Well, and if one of the blinds, have the blades bent, or
Yeah,
replace the blind.
yeah,
'Cause you can't fix that.
yeah,
And so and if you do it, make sure that you replace them all. If you can't, can't go white, white, tan.
yeah.
They all need to just make sure that everything's, as you would want it if you were going to live there.
Yep, for sure. It comes back to the beginning of the conversation where the most important thing to consider as an investor is this somewhere where you would live. Okay, then you're on the right track when you're talking about doing the turnover.
Well, hopefully you're not a pig then.
So, Suzanne, just like your turnover process should be, we're having a pretty thorough conversation here. We hope you enjoyed part one of hitting reset on a property and putting your tenant's mind at ease with a strong turnover process. Stay tuned. Episode 2 is coming out later this week. We're going to discuss some repairs and touch-ups, adding the important wow factor, and then the final walkthrough to make sure that no stone is left unturned. We'll see you for part 2 later this week.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Uncontested Investing. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow REI Inc. magazine on LinkedIn and Facebook. and RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time.